This is Taylor Mason, and I'm here today with Representative Darisha Parker. This is an ongoing oral history project on the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, diversity within the House, and its impact on members and staff. Thank you so much for taking time to do this today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so let's get started by a little background information. If you could just tell me about yourself and your journey to the House of Representatives.
Absolutely. I am a lifelong member of the Northwest section of Philadelphia. And during that time of being a resident, I was always involved in community engagement, organizing community events. If there was something that was not right and was a little bit unsure of the safety and the well-being of the residents of a particular block, I would organize meetings. I connected earlier on with Neighborhood Town Watch. When I was involved, it was Neighborhood Town Watch, but recently the name has changed to Neighborhood Town Watch Integrative Services. And what I was able to do by connecting with Neighborhood Town Watch is organizing an entire neighborhood to be trained in public safety, certain things that we need to look out for. We were able to have bi-weekly meetings. Then it went to monthly meetings. And we also got trained on how to monitor and how to keep our block safe. Another thing that we were able to do was we put all of our resources together and we purchased cameras so that the block could be monitored on various occasions. And with the relationship that we had with Neighborhood Town Watch, in addition to the Philadelphia Police Department, when there were certain incidents that were occurring, we were able to email the police that they could come over and look at the film from the camera, and were able to apprehend and arrest criminal activities that happened on this block. So that is one of the proud moments that I was able to do from a safety perspective. Not too long ago, sadly, in the Germantown area, there was a young lady who was kidnapped and abducted. I was able to organize the neighborhoods in this small block radius to make sure that we organized to figure out what was going on and how we can have her return back safely and alive. I organized media outreach to all of the various television and newspapers and radio stations so the mother could share her story. And this story actually made national news. And happily, we were able to safely return the young lady, and she was alive. And those are like just various, that's one aspect of it when it comes to that type of public safety outreach and that I was doing. And I'm never no stranger to political politics. It's really funny that when I hear sometimes individuals, a word when my father was alive used to use, they used to really get some annoyed when you say you're just chilling on like a Saturday. We could not understand what that meant, because between my brother and our cousins and our family friends, every Saturday we literally were running up and down steps, knocking on doors, handing out literatures, doing it block by block. And when the whistle was blown, that was the signal for all of us to return back to the vehicles for safety. So I've always been a liaison from the political aspect, community aspect, and relates to the media. And I was always a community liaison, in which those type of skill sets of organizing behind the scenes is a little bit different now, because I find myself pushing individuals in the community when events happen to speak, and they turn around and they segue to me to come to the front to grab the mic. So through your work, you shall be known. And that is one of the things that I want individuals to know me for the hard work and dedication and how committed I am to the betterment the safety, and to making sure that when people think of 198, they always think of it being good and great.
Okay. So then you worked for Representative Youngblood, but what did you decide to run for your House seat after
Interesting that you say that. When you have somebody as a Representative Youngblood who was a sitting legislator, and when she retired, she was the first African-American woman of color in leadership for the caucus. And when she retired, she was secretary. Mm-hmm. I literally would call Representative Youngblood. Maybe sometimes it seems so long ago, but I was calling her on a daily basis, angry, frustrated. What is happening? What are you doing in Harrisburg? Why isn't this getting done? What needs to be done? I see this going on. Let me make sure this gets covered. So I literally would call the newspapers, or I would call the radio station. If I was driving through this section of the district, if I saw a pothole, I would never call her. I would just call and report it myself. And literally, I would get so frustrated about a lot of the things that weren't being done. And I wanted things to occur in a microwave minute. But now, as I'm seated as a legislator, things don't occur in a microwave minute. And some days, some of the stances that you take, you are an island. But I see sometimes that it does work better when you work with a collective group. So I am thinking that, this is really what it's all about. The organization, the advocacy, the outreach, actually caring about the citizens of your neighborhood and your community. And this conversation between her and I went on for years. I attended several of her events. I would help out in every way I possibly could, until an opportunity that occurred. Now it seems like so long ago, but it was only 4 years ago, when I asked her, hey, Representative, if there's any opportunities available on your staff, I'm available to help. I had my PR company, which was a small PR company, and I was having various projects, and I was literally on a slow period for business and for clientele. So I just reached out to her and said, if there's anything available, please don't hesitate to call. Well, I did not realize when you call a Representative Youngblood, you better stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That call an hour later was the head of human resources calling me, instructing me to fill out my application. They needed the following documents from me. They needed this by this particular day. They need to make sure my paperwork got processed, and everything was just moving so fast until literally 48 hours later. Mind you, this is all before COVID. So 48 hours later, I'm getting an email that had my name, my address, and the position said full-time. So now I'm alarmed. I'm like, wait, did she actually say full-time? I said I was going to help out. I didn't think I wanted to do this full-time. She called me back, and we literally, the rest is history. I can also share that currently my brother is my political director, and he has been a long time worker and a long time, I'm not going to say a worker, long time political genius, political consultant, strategic planner, not just through Philadelphia, but through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So when the inquiry initially happened, she called him immediately, like, is this real? Like, is this real with your sister? Like, is she not playing? Like, I've been asking her. Because Representative Youngblood would run into me into the grocery store, like, what are we doing? Are you coming on my staff? What are we doing? You would be great at this. And I was like, no. And I really was him in the home, like, Rep, you're doing a fine job. I'll stay behind the scenes. So that day, when that call actually occurred, she literally had to make sure I wasn't pulling her leg. And literally, the rest is history. Not only am I her successor, but I'm also her neighbor. So the burdens and the shoulders that I stand on and the doors that are open for me to be her successor, I give kudos, praises to her for believing in me, for instilling in me the hard work, the grit, and the tenacity to just get things done when you become a politician.
So just so I write it down correctly, so you worked for her from 2018 till 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, good. So this is probably a good transition then. So what has been your experience, and maybe you can talk about Representative Youngblood's experience as well, being a person of color in the House? Do you think there's been extra hurdles to get to the House, or even while you were here to get?
Absolutely, because again, being a person of color, especially of a woman, you're in the minority. There aren't as many women of color or women elected officials, and not just in Pennsylvania, but in general. So it's a very different transition to get used to on a daily basis. That's why, again, I have very fortunate and blessed that I maintain the relationship with Representative Youngblood, that I am her neighbor. I also keep in touch with former Senator Kitchen. I also keep in touch with former Senator Leanna Washington. I also keep in touch with the Honorable Curtis Thomas. I also keep in touch. He's now our Congressman, Dwight Evans. So if you can see where my upline is going as it relates to legislation, I pretty much have individuals who are currently in the government branch, but then I have individuals who have been retired and can pave the way to where I am today. And literally why all of them are always receptive to me, because this is how I always have been when it came to them. When Senator Leanna Washington was the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, our family-owned business, Ross Associates, was a strategic communications consulting firm. She was our client. So a lot of the names that roam the halls of Harrisburg have known me my entire life. So by me being in there now, it's really just different because I'm elected, but it's not like I'm a stranger to the legislative body, especially when it comes to what we're doing now.
Yeah, that's a very interesting path. And I have not heard many, obviously all the members seem to know each other very well, but it's, working on that outreach and one-on-one is a very unique path that I have not heard yet from the project. But what
you'll end up hearing when people will talk about Representative Parker, one thing, the ongoing joke in the caucus or even outside of the caucus is, does Representative Parker sleep? Because the days they get text messages and emails from me, sometimes they start at 4 a.m., sometimes 5, sometimes 6. So they know that I'm passionate. They know my drive. They know I'm committed for change, for a better. And that does mean that the early bird does eat the worm. And I want as many of them possible to transform our district. And the only way you know how to do certain things is by reaching out to individuals who sometimes were stood alone in the party, as far as women, as far as people who, maybe didn't always agree with the party and had to stand alone. So I am that coalition builder to making sure how we can connect even if we disagree. And like I said, it does get lonely. So when those are the days that, being new in this role, I do reach out to all the people that I named to make sure that my boisterous opinions and voice is understood, and passion why I do what I do.
Yeah. The 198th district, which you represent. So could you explain your district? What makes it so unique? Do their issues align with issues that the Black Caucus is pursuing at the moment?
Absolutely. So what I always say why the Young 198 is unique is because where the 198 is located, we're close to the interstate of Route 1. So we can literally get to Center City in 11 minutes, and various parts of the city in a timely manner because we're so close to Center City and the major interstates, Route 1, Henry Avenue, as well as Lincoln Drive if you need to get to the suburbs. The various challenges that you're talking about, yes, you're talking about criminal justice reform. Absolutely, you have an individual like myself who is never going to be quiet about criminal justice reform. It doesn't need to reform, yes, and why it needs to be reformed now, because until individuals of color can walk down the street without being profiled or without individuals thinking that they need to be arrested because they're doing something illegal other than just sitting on the corner, then I know that I need to do more of my job. But we're not living in the best of times. It's a very dangerous of times. And that also means that individuals like me had to make sure I had a strong relationship with our police department. So my background is I've always had a relationship with the 14th Police District. I was very active, involved in their police advisory and their service meetings. So to bring on 2 more districts, okay, it was new, but all of that again was not new for me because I was a staffer. So that part is me. When we're talking about the environment and when we're talking about what happens to our Black and Brown children as it relates to COVID currently, there is no coincidence right now that as the 198th district, especially where it's located, the zip code of 19140 had one of the highest level of asthma amongst African American youth. That also means that's why it wasn't a coincidence that it was also one of the highest numbers for COVID when the COVID numbers were prevalent. And that's why, for me, environmental issues are always going to be a top priority as we relate to health and well-being. And you're also talking about me as a female. So then when you're talking about the Legislative Caucus and you're talking about certain things that we're talking about, that we have individuals like my colleague, State Representative Morgan Cephas, who always leads the conversation with maternal health as it relates to better safety, well-being for our female inmates, as it relates to why we got to have a conversation and no longer talk about period poverty. Period poverty should be on everyone's radar. It makes no sense for individuals to go to a store and you spending $20 just for some feminine products. That's why I'm very proud to say that I was able to have it was a very historic day. I actually had our minority leader of the House, we had the majority leader of City Council, and we had our chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, all women and all women of color in the 198th district when we did the launch of the nation's only menstrual hub, which I'm very proud that we were able to secure a grant for. So that was pretty much a snapshot and clip of why things that's happening in the 198th district connect with a lot of the top issues in the Legislative Black Caucus.
That's a great transition then. You mentioned it a little bit, but your involvement with the Black Caucus, are you holding any subcommittee positions like you just mentioned?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. One of the subcommittees that I do chair is Women and Girls of Color. And that is a very broad title that I definitely want to make sure that I keep on everybody's radar for everything that I just shared with you. Currently, we have a lot of different issues that happen as we're talking to maternal health, as we're talking to period poverty, but as we're talking about women coming home who were incarcerated. I have several of those locations that are located in Why Not Prosper, and I have another one in our 198th district that people need to be aware of, that actually are in the hub of the 198th district. And they have an African-American woman whose issues and whose concerns are about organizations that are near and dear to women on a daily basis. And we just have to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Okay. So looking towards the future, what are some issues you hope the Black Caucus or even your subcommittee will tackle in the next few years?
Well, one of the things that I hope that we're definitely going to have to tackle is environmental issues, cannabis, and do a deep dive with our building and trades opportunities, our youth, and civic engagement. I think when I gave you all of those in that order, you could pretty much see where my head is, where my heart and my passion, and we really have to have a deep dive conversation about each one of them. If I start off with environmental, is because individuals like myself are still actively involved with an organization called the Neighbors Against the Power Plant, which is an activist organization that partners with the Sierra Club and other organizations that is about environmental and making sure that individuals are aware of why it's important to know about the environment, what you're putting out in your body and what you're taking in. You're speaking to a person who is always going to be passionate about it, because I have asthma. So anytime I notice the air quality when I'm leaving my district versus going to another district and versus when I'm going to the suburbs, I noticed the air quality difference when I was recently in Lancaster on a tour. And those are the type of things that pollutants that I'm going to always be fighting and outspoken about. You also heard me mention, you heard me talk about the laborers and the unions and apprenticeship program. We can't talk about jobs if we don't have opportunities available. And I'm always going to be making sure that the building trades, the laborers and the unions and apprentice programs, that type of coalition and gap that I have for individuals that are especially residents of the 198th district, are giving them more options. If you're not the type of individual that was an AB student, we need to talk to you about, if you're not going to go off to the military, if you're not going off to college, that here is another road for you, and why this will be something that not just for you, but a lot of members of your family, to change the financial structure in your household. And I would encourage anybody to do both. Go to college and also think of having a trade, because this day and age, you need to also have a skill set. It also teaches you time management. It teaches you about structure. It teaches you about discipline. And you can't, and you have to read, write, and arithmetic. Those are the type of things that hold our city and our state together that we always need to be prepared for. And I also talk about, when I talked about, I said civics in our education as it relates to our children. You're speaking to a legislator, but we also need to have time with our children, that they know that they are the future, that we're supposed to be teaching them well and letting them lead the way. And the best way you do that is by exposing them to actually what is going on in government, having them be involved in civics and understanding what each office serves on, understanding that there is an executive branch, a judiciary branch, and a legislative branch. I'm a part of the legislative branch, and understand that I'm a lawmaker. So the amount of people that I represent is smaller than the other levels of government. And then explaining to them why I run every year, explaining why the census is one of the most controversial topics this year based on reapportionment, and explaining what that means for our Black and Brown community. And the best way to do that is have that type of civic engagement in our school system. I'll also share a quote. In the end, if the people cannot trust their government to do the job for which it exists, to protect them and to promote their common welfare, all else is lost. And that is by our former Barack Obama. So you just got to make sure that, again, we are doing things that is for the government, but the people are the government, and we can do it together.
Okay, my last question then for you is, what advice would you give to other people of color who want to pursue a career in public service?
The best advice I would tell anybody who's interested in serving in political office is this. Hopefully you have a relationship in faith whatever that faith may be. Because if you're going to pursue something of an unknown, then you need to have a secure, safe downtime place to meditate, to pray, and to have faith, and to have a wise counsel. I would also encourage an individual to start saving your coins if that's what you're serious involved in thinking about being involved in, because it does take finances and resources of your own to be involved. And another thing that I would also encourage individuals, and people may not understand it, if you live on a block, at minimum, you should know 5 to 6 people, first and last name, and their telephone numbers. That is your civic association. That is your public engagement, and that is how you can get involved. And if you have your block leader, your committee person, your ward leader, your neighborhood town watch person, as well as your community relations officer for the police, these 5 individuals or 6 individuals are the eyes and the ears that you report to when something is going on, and not making your elected officials call or office the first call, but making it as a follow-up if other people ahead that I just named aren't doing their jobs. And just being aware that if you're going to talk about politics, understand what the definition is. Politics, by its definition, is a system in which scarce resources are allocated. In other words, who gets what? So if you want your neighborhood to thrive, if you want your neighborhood to thrive beyond survival, then get involved. The best way to get involved is be a block captain, be a block leader, be an organizer. If you're not happy with what the elected official is currently doing, then why not be involved in that ward or in that division? Why not run for a committee person or one leader? Why not organize a meeting to get to know your neighbors and invite the various individuals? So I just say, keep organizing, keep pushing, and do what you think is best. And I'll end with this. If you're seriously pursuing that type of office, and if you have loved ones, talking amongst your family, talking amongst your friends, those who are really true love and respect and are endeared to you will give it to you straight. They will let you know if it's in your best interest, or if it's something that you need to seek out later on. And then you may think about how you can volunteer for that individual office or avenue that you're thinking about. But that's what I would also say. And I actually say it's not an easy job. It definitely is not an easy job. You have to think about what is best for you and understand that Representative Parker, this is not Representative Parker's seat. This is the seat of the constituents of the 198th district, and they make the decisions. That is why I'm standing before you today via Zoom.
Well, that was a great end. Unless you have anything else you'd like to discuss.
I would just personally like to say thank you to you for taking the time out for this recording. I cannot believe that I'm actually sitting here in 2022 giving you a snapshot of my legislative career, or just legislative initiatives of certain things that I'm working on and certain things that are near and dear to me. That is very, very, very important. But as I listen and I'm telling you about my story and I'm telling you about my passion, also be aware that there are bills that I'm working on. I recently secured $250,000 for a neighborhood town watch, and that's going to provide them with vests, walkie-talkies, giving them the information and tools to train our individuals. I'm also working on gun violence prevention. I'm also working on cannabis bills. I'm also working on consumer protection, tenants' rights. There's economic development. There's a lot of different things that Representative Parker is passionate about, but also understand when you hear my name, if you're thinking about Darisha K. Parker, think about an individual who's talking about a long, precious life. And the only way we can have a long, precious life, a long quality life, and a safety life in our environment is to be involved, stay connected. And if you see something, say something by dialing 215-686-TIPS, or you can also call my office at 215-849-6426. And this is State Representative Darisha K. Parker. thanking you for taking the time to get a snapshot of me sitting before you as a new elected official.